Good afternoon, everybody. My name is David Goldfarb. This is Alex Goldfarb. We're from DSG Benefits Group. We're very excited today to speak to EO Dallas and a lot of the members here in the audience. My name is David. And today we're going to talk about a few quick tips for employers to address rising cost of healthcare, upcoming renewals that are approaching, especially if your group health plan renews January 1st. You might start seeing some crazy renewal figures, and a few free takeaways for the audience and whoever's watching today. Here we go. So who we are. We are an employee benefits, hyper-focused employee benefits consulting firm. All we do is help employers not only design, implement, and manage employee benefit programs with the end goal being a program that is sustainable and that is not going up in price by 10 or 20% year over year. Alex, you want to add anything about us?
Yeah, one thing I do want to expand on that really sets us apart from others is, as David mentioned, we are laser focused in employee benefits. We built this agency with that intention to not be a jack of all trades, but to really be a master in employee benefits. And oftentimes we see other people in the same field, in the same arena as us, that dabble in property and casualty, personal lines, continue to expand their agency because the bottom line is important. But what we have found is that does not allow them to have the correct talent in place within their agency to really focus in on employee benefits, which typically is the second or third largest line item on your income statement, as well as being the most impactful for its employees.
Yeah, and just to add one or two other quick points, as everybody knows here, health insurance, the ecosystem is very complicated for the average everyday person, for your employees, and we try to have a heavy focus on understanding each individual employer, their unique objectives, and their unique workforce, because the reality is today, most employers have a multi-generational workforce. And with that being said, if you've got baby boomer employees, they understand benefits differently. They want certain types of benefits compared to a millennial workforce or a Gen Z workforce. The traditional way of explaining how benefits work to the younger workforce does not work, plain and simple. So we try to ensure that the entire workforce fully understands how the benefits work and how to navigate the system. We're completely independent and transparent. We always work for the employer, not the insurance company, and we provide guidance that is in the best interest of the employer, unlike some of our competition.
Yeah, and there truly isn't a one size or a one solution that fits all. Oftentimes that's what we see in the marketplace, and that's just not right by the employer nor its employees. You do have the ability to customize solutions that meet your corporate objectives. And as David alluded to, oftentimes companies will have 3 different generations in their workforce. And if you're not able to communicate to those 3 different generations, the amount of money and effort that you as an employer put into the benefits program becomes a little bit less significant than what it should be.
And if you're an employer, and if you have an opportunity to kind of look at your claims, what kind of makes up the claims and compare that to the premiums, what we're seeing today is most employers, when you look at their total claims, well, first of all, go back 5-6 years ago, maybe prescription drugs represented 5 or 6% of the total claims. Today, we're seeing, on average, 20 to 30% of total claims are prescription drug claims. And in fact, in some cases, we see it over 50% of total claims being prescription drug claims. And that can be very daunting and scary, but there are solutions to the problem, and we'll talk a little bit about that here in a minute. Anyway, I think we will go ahead and proceed. So I just wanted to give you a snapshot of kind of a simple renewal that you might see coming in, especially if your group health plan renews January 1st. I'm kind of being conservative. You might see something like an 8-9% increase. Likely you're not going to see a 0% increase. You might see a 40% increase. We've had clients that have received 60-70% rate increases. And obviously that doesn't work. You can't absorb that as a company. You can't shift all that increase to an employee, otherwise you'll lose those employees. So again, the goal of today is to provide a few free tips that any employer can incorporate to help mitigate these rising costs.
Yeah, and you can't, just to continue on that point, you can't, oftentimes that we see have employers continue to increase the deductible in order to get cheaper plans because they can't absorb a 20-25% increase, because these are small to mid-sized companies, and that's detrimental. And so, as David mentioned, you can't shift, I mean, you can, but you should not shift that entire responsibility to the employee from a subsidy standpoint, nor should you bring in, if you had a $1,000 deductible plan up to a $6,000 or $8,000 deductible plan, and have the employee absorb more upfront cost for those plan designs.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about one simple, go backwards, I'm sorry. An acronym. So some free tips as you're approaching the renewal season. As I just mentioned, we're seeing increases all over the board. There are many ways to address these increases. And we're going to talk about one right here. And we're about to talk about an HRA. But here are some kind of 4 takeaways. Don't accept renewals at face value. Analyze the data. So if you're working with a broker or a consultant, ask questions. Ask for data. Don't just take a 10% rate increase, because there are options out there. Explore alternative funding options. So if you're a mid-size, even a smaller employer, consider looking at just, again, it's based on claims and on data. Explore alternative funding options, such as a partially self-funded health plan, if it makes sense. And start early. So you're not, if you renew January 1st, you're not having to make decisions over Thanksgiving or approaching Christmas time. You should be having this conversation now. It's mid-October right now. If you're not having the conversation, reach out to whoever's helping you and ask to begin that dialogue. One of the most effective and very simple tools that an employer can incorporate into their benefits program is something called an HRA, which stands for a health reimbursement arrangement. And there are so many acronyms in our industry. This is another one. With the health reimbursement arrangement, I really want to kind of focus on the word health reimbursement arrangement, the reimbursement side. So effectively, if anybody today has a traditional medical plan with a $1,000 deductible plan, right? Which is today that's considered a pretty rich benefit. The reality is 1 out of 10 or 2 out of 10 of your employees are ever going to meet that deductible. 85 to 90% of all claims are covered at the office visit or the prescription copay. So if we've got data and if we've got claims level data, one suggestion is why don't we take these very inflated premiums associated with a $1,000 deductible plan, change our plan from a $1,000 to a $5,000 deductible plan, which sounds scary. You're going to see a significant premium savings by making that change from $1,000 to $5,000, anywhere between 20 and 30%. So if you're spending $100,000 a year on this $1,000 deductible plan, your premiums will likely reduce to $70,000, $75,000 by upping it to a $5,000 deductible plan. So instead of prepaying for these inflated premiums for this $1,000 deductible, take the savings, those are fixed dollars, and create a plan that walks and talks just like that $1,000 deductible plan. And you can do that with a health reimbursement arrangement. Here are kind of just 4 bullet points. What it does is you have your medical plan, you change it to a $5,000 deductible plan, but what you communicate to all the employees is don't worry, this plan is going to work just how it did before. Once you cross $1,000 of that deductible, the company will reimburse you if and when you cross $1,000 all the way up to that $5,000 deductible. And again, on the front end, you're seeing a significant amount of premium savings. For the employer, you are reimbursing if and when an employee or their dependent crosses that threshold. In almost every analysis that we've done, even if every single employee hits that $5,000 deductible, there is still enough savings to come out ahead. I've done hundreds of these types of programs. I've never seen really 15 or 20% of a population hit a deductible. We have dozens of these in place right now, and I'd say on average we're seeing 5 to 10% utilization. So you're effectively offering the same benefit, but saving a whole lot on the front end and reimbursing if and when, if that makes sense. Do you want to add anything to that, Alex?
One quick specific example. We just onboarded a new client, not a big group, maybe 80, 90 or so employees. They came to us, they asked, what can we do? We're spending almost $1 million in premiums. A little bit frantic because their renewal is December 1st, cannot afford this 30% increase that the carrier provided. We went in, spoke with their executives. We saw that they were on a $1,000 deductible plan, which was crazy to begin with, and explained to them, if we put in place a $5,000 deductible plan, but you as an employer, I want you to reimburse employees if they pass this $1,000 threshold, you will receive a fixed savings of over $200,000. It's a significant amount of money. So the obvious question was, if I'm reimbursing $4,000, the difference between 1 and 5, I have 80 employees, I'm going to go broke. I'm going to be spending more money on that than I would just this platinum $1,000 deductible plan. With the data, we were able to articulate to the executives that out of your 80-person workforce, it's only been 10 people that have crossed spending more than $2,000. All of this data is readily available. Yeah. Carriers and some people will try to make this complicated to understand. They do that for a reason. They do that on purpose. Part of our job is to uncomplicate the complicated. So with a simple illustration, we were able to go to the CFO, the CEO, show them, look, I am telling you that you've got 10 people that have crossed $2,000. If we were to budget that maybe 20% or 25% ever cross this threshold, you're still coming out a little over $110,000 ahead.
And this is just, there are so many strategies to incorporate, but this is a very simple strategy that any employer of any size can do to help mitigate these increases while still offering the same level of benefits.
Yeah, and it's quick to implement. I mean, this isn't something, oh, I need 6, 8 months. I mean, some people will tell that to employers. I hate to say scare tactic, but I have seen it as a scare tactic. I mean, this is something that could be put in place quickly. I do want to preface that you don't want to just put this in place without any type of education or dialogue going to members. We find it to be extraordinarily important for us to educate employees and members, explain how the program works, and be able to articulate that their plan is not being degraded whatsoever. Mm-hmm. They just simply have another avenue to have access to additional funds to pay for this higher deductible plan. But again, reiterate, you as an employee will not be paying any more money than you have in previous years. But what we were able to do was lower your cost per paycheck, which typically is most important to employees.
And an immediate response we might get when we talk about something like this is, I don't want to be in the business of reimbursing my employees or looking at things. Of course not, and you don't want to, because that's a legal nightmare. There are what's called HIPAA laws, privacy laws. For a very nominal cost, you would hire what's called a third-party administrator or TPA that if an employee crosses that threshold of whatever amount is set, they would just send their EOB to this third-party administrator. Third-party administrator is there to protect the employer, make sure there's no fraudulent claims. Once they see they've crossed that deductible, they will then send an ACH or direct deposit to the employee within 24, 48, 72 hours.
Yeah, taking that liability and work off of you and the HR staff. I mean, it's, when David said nominal cost, it's with an 80-person group, under $100 a month. Typically, they charge 75 cents per employee per month.
Yeah, a couple bucks at most.
So, I mean, it is extraordinarily nominal. Outsourcing that from a liability standpoint and from an administrative standpoint is extraordinarily important.
Yeah. So this is just a very simple thing. I encourage you to ask your broker or consultant when they deliver the ugly renewal that is most likely inevitable. We're going to, so we call these just very easy solutions. Before I flip to the next slide, I think everybody in the audience can agree one area where costs have gotten out of control are prescription drugs. And it's very, very, very confusing because today, when you go to the pharmacy, you might see GoodRx or these discount cards, and you have your insurance, your Blue Cross, your Aetna, your United Healthcare card. You show them the card, and then the pharmacist might say, you know what? For $10, if you scan this QR code, you can get the exact same drug instead of a $25 copay for $10 or $1,000 medication for $15. So and the entire pharmacy ecosystem is not only complex, but many, many, many misaligned incentives. And we're going to go to this next slide. We're going to dig a little bit deeper. And actually, I'll preface this by saying I've been involved in a documentary. It will be released within the next month or so. The documentary is called Side Effects May Include, because as you know, especially with the commercials today, all the pharmaceutical commercials, when they talk, blah, 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 you might die, you might do this. Side of the hidden cost of prescription drugs, and I'm gonna share just a little trailer with all of y'all to kind of, I want to get your opinion on it, and then we'll talk about some prescription drug strategies. If you don't mind starting the video, please.
We trust our insurance to protect us.
But what if the system we rely on was never designed for us?
You don't take the time to construct a plan the right way, both on the health side and on the prescription side, I mean, you're doomed.
The Federal Trade Commission planning to sue the 3 largest pharmacy benefit managers over insulin and other drug prices.
This lawsuit is expected to target those so-called middlemen.
People are dying because they can't afford their medication, and you all are part of the problem.
The PBMs, the wholesalers, the actual pharmacies, all of these folks that touch the drug before they ever make it into the hands of a person.
If you don't understand the PBM industry, that's understandable because it's meant to be opaque. But if you understand that the traditional PBM is in business to sell drugs to patients at a profit, that pretty much sums it up.
5 prescriptions, $29,000. As we can see here, under GoodRx, this same drug is $35.
Patients are paying more with insurance than without it.
It was $192. Put it through for the cash price, and it was just $15.
Unfortunately, everyone thinks that because they have insurance, they're always going to be getting the best deal.
Life-saving drugs are priced like luxury goods.
You're almost never getting the best deal.
Typically, the PBM, the pharmacy side of the business, is the most profitable side of the business. Ask questions. Why? Why?
Whether it's a penny, nickel, or $1 million, if you're conducting business in a way to earn a profit that your clients know nothing about, that's profiteering. That is a problem. That's unethical.
Cigna, Anthem, United, Aetna, they all routinely deny employers access to their own claims data, and then they turn around and monetize it for themselves.
What am I going to do? I don't know that this drug actually sells in the pharmacy for $16 when they've charged me $1,800 for it.
It was just so much like questioning a suspect. But it was easier to get a confession out of a bad guy than it was to get the truth out of a public vendor.
Your employee just paid $1,000 for a med that should have cost him $500.
If patients aren't winning, who is?
We could spend an hour talking about the pharmacy side and prescription drugs. Just a quick takeaway is, and I alluded to it in the documentary, is whether it's as an employer or as an employee, it's imperative to ask questions and to get second opinions. We were working with a city just north of Dallas, and I'll try to make this short. They said, you know what, our pharmacy spend is out of control. All of the large consulting houses have told us there's nothing that can be done. And one specific example was the city has an employee with 2 children that are on a medication that costs the city over $1 million a year. It's $1.1 million a year. They've been on this medication for the past 4 or 5 years, and they will likely be on this medication indefinitely. And this particular city has about 1,700 employees. This one medication, this $1 million medication represents like 15-20% of their total pharmacy spend, this one medication. There are things that can be done to address that. I'm not going to get into all the different things that can be done, but the long story short is we were able to source this medication, exact same medication. It's not a brand, it's not a generic, or it's for about $250,000. It's still unbelievably expensive. The city is partially self-funded. They have stop-loss insurance, but it was about a $750,000, $800,000 delta. They asked questions, they didn't get the right answers. They asked us, and we provided some solutions. So what I encourage any employer to do is ask questions. Why are my claims so high? And if you look at an insurance carrier claim report, it's biased. It's their data. So you really want to remove all of the subjective information and kind of put things on an even playing field. Blue Cross Blue Shield, any of these large carriers, they're going to say your claims are high, but they're inflated when they tell you that when you start removing some of the barriers, it's a different story.
Well, even to take that a step further, employers, especially when you're a larger employer, we find it's critical to find out the advice that I am being given or fed. Is there a hidden incentive, hidden compensation involved as to why am I being fed that particular advice? And oftentimes there are. We always find that we find it important that benefit advisors never tie their compensation to the carrier, to increases. There are some that might even charge every script that gets filled. There's a compensation lever that gets pulled.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen people in other markets in our industry. This is egregious, but they are getting paid $5, $6. So for like 1,000-person employer group with dependents, anytime an employee or a dependent fills a prescription, they're getting $5. So they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars because of this built-in perverse incentive that they've put into the pharmacy program. So it's transparency is an overused word in our industry, but it's critical. It's critical. And I'm going to just one last thing. I touched on it at the beginning. This is talking about the multi-generational workforce. Traditional education, traditional communication does not cut it. The 30-page benefit guides, I mean, if you've got employees in their 20s or 30s, they're not going to open it up. So you need to have a multi-prong approach to communicating, engaging, and educating your workforce, not only your workforce, but even spouses and dependents. I read an article the other day, and they were talking about using TikTok for the millennials and Gen Z folks. Yeah, their attention spans are generally lower than
7 seconds.
There you go. 7 seconds. Yeah. So with that being said, you want to communicate things in bite-sized pieces. Did you know that you have a telemedicine benefit and you can see a doctor at a $0 copay 24/7, 365? Now, if you have a large gash in your arm, you want to go to urgent care or ER. But there's the saying, you don't know what you don't know. And our goal is to empower employers and help them empower their employees. And wanted to open it up to the audience and see if anybody has any questions that we can answer. Yes, sir.
All right, so you use the Good RX, right? Who's paying the difference for that? If your insurance cost, I guess it's differently, if the cost of the medication would be $20,
Yep.
right? If you use your insurance, but it's $3.79 with Good RX, someone's got to be getting paid now, right?
Yes.
Who is that? Where does that come from?
It's going to be Good RX.
So GoodRx might purchase that particular drug for $1, and they're going to mark it up what their markup is, right? It's similar like if you're familiar with Mark Cuban and his cost plus model. It's a very simple thing. You've got the manufacturer cost, and then he's got his, I think, 15%. 15% increase, and there it is. Versus if you fill that specific RX with your insurance card, there's maybe 4 to 7 middlemen involved, and that's why you now have this $20 copay.
But those were fixed copays.
Correct.
So like a generic drug is $20 in that example. It's like, in reality, that generic drug might be $2 or $3. So with GoodRx, it might charge $3.50, $4, and they would capture that delta, if that makes sense. And you're not going to get any credit towards your deductible, but I mean, $20 to $3 is
no brainer.
No brainer, but the reality is the deltas are much, much larger. You saw in that a few clips of that documentary where there are $1,800, $2,500 medications that you can get for $15, in many cases for $0 through what's called patient assistance programs. There are.
That's wild. If I didn't know my business, I wouldn't be idiot.
It's wild. It is wild, and it's intentionally complicated and opaque, and something's got to give. Mark Cuban was on Capitol Hill yesterday. I guess he came back for the Mavericks game, which was a disappointment. But yeah, talking to Congress, talking to the Senate, and just, I mean, but you're going against Big Pharma. And there are 3 PBMs that represent 85 to 90% of the entire marketplace. Those PBMs own insurance carriers. It used to be insurance carriers owned PBMs, but now you're seeing PBMs owning insurance carriers. And there's a plan is going to steer you certain directions that's most profitable for them.
Yeah, the margins on prescriptions, extraordinarily, I mean, I don't want to even say far greater because it's more than far greater, but significantly more than margins on a medical insurance on someone billing out a code and then taking a 50 or 100% markup. I mean, on some prescriptions, 1,000%.
The city example that I gave, the $1 million plus medication that we were able to source for $250,000, came from a pharmacy outside of the U.S. There are four countries that have the same credentials that U.S. pharmacies have to abide by. It's UK, it's New Zealand, it's Canada, and Israel. And I'm trying to remember where we sourced this one from. I think it was Canada. Israel can be tricky depending on what's going on in that area from a shipping standpoint, but there are 3 or 4 main levers that you can kind of incorporate. Drug importation is one of them, where you can get medications for 10 cents on the dollar or even less.
But I think at the point that David had mentioned that I love is insurance companies used to own PBMs, pharmacy benefit managers, and it's reversed. Right now the PBMs own the insurance company, so you can just see how much weight that they have when they're part of lobbyist groups, when they're trying to keep things the way they are.
They're trying to keep everything in their ecosystem.
Correct.
Right? They're buying up urgent care centers, minute clinics. I mean,
and it takes powerful people like Mark Cuban that actually have a pretty resonating voice to speak up and to show people like this is nuts, like this doesn't have to be this way.
And kudos to Mark Cuban because I mean his cost plus program does not solve the problem because it doesn't have every medication
Right.
out there. It's got a few hundred medications, most of which are extremely competitively priced.
Right.
But you still need kind of the full formulary. His program can supplement pharmacy plans. And that's a great question.
Are you saying that it's not really even the drug companies per se? I mean, they say they have research and development costs for, they make money on this drug, so they can do that. This is just the middlemen?
Middlemen, because you can get the same drug in the UK for a fraction of the cost, and it's the same R&D.
And the amount of middlemen. I mean, how many hands from the manufacturer of where medicine's made to where you pick it up at the counter at CVS or Walgreens, how many people touch it and apply their markups?
Sometimes it's dozens. I mean, I gave you one example, and it's not representative of our industry, but there are some bad actors that will build in compensation every single time an employee gets a script. It's the PBM that is paying the consultant. In return, the employer is paying these inflated premiums and claims costs.
So I'm aware that some brokers, some and some don't get kickbacks. From
Pushing.
Yeah, and so kind of explain how that works typically.
Yeah, and I think Alex spoke to this a little bit. Unfortunately, and this is just reality, some of the much larger national firms, regional firms, I mean, even local firms have side deals with insurance carriers, and they say, if you push this much volume to us, we'll give you a $250,000 bonus up front if you can guarantee us this much volume. We'll give you an additional 5%. Where do these dollars come from? So an approach that we take when we talk to a mid-sized employers is, hey, let's just take commission out of the equation, because commission can create conflicts of interest, and let's come up with a fair amount or the commission equivalent. That way, because if you do get a 20 or 30% rate increase, the typical broker that's earning 5% commission does not deserve a 20 or 30% pay increase. So we'll just remove that out of the equation completely to really provide objective guidance. Good question. Any other? Yes, ma'am.
On the HRA structure that you were talking about, would that be a reasonable option for a very small company with 4 employees?
Potentially, yeah. Potentially. I mean, maybe. I mean, and you can do baby steps. So like you can say if you've got a $1,000 deductible today, maybe it's like bump it up to a $2,000 deductible. Look at what the premium savings are. And if and when somebody crosses $1,000 of the $2,000 deductible, then you would reimburse them. At the smaller you are from a company standpoint, I would minimize the delta between the deductible and the HRA, just from an exposure standpoint. But that's a great question.
Are these $1,000 deductible plans you're talking about, are these for like 500 to 5,000 employees? Because I'm looking at mine transparently. It's me and my 2 kids.
Yep.
Silver PPO, Blue Cross Blue Shield, $1,900 a month with an $8,500 per person deductible. And in my world, that's called wealth transfer.
Yep.
And so I would love to know where I can get a $1,000 deductible plan. Are we talking big plans here?
No, it's employers that believe that offering we see $250 deductible plans. It's rare these days, but I see that a handful of times every year. They just have, again, with these low deductible plans, they have very, very high premiums. The broker or consultant is getting a commission on the premium, so there's very little incentive for the broker to say, hey, let's shift this $250 deductible to a $2,000 deductible, reduce the premiums by 20, 30%, effectively reducing their compensation by 20 or 30%, if that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, 250, you can create, we have a group in Alabama, 80, 90, 100 employees. Mm-hmm. When we met them, they had a $350 deductible, yeah. And it's blue collar. Long story short is we put in an HRA. We bumped that $350 to a $4,000 deductible. Alex is good with remembering some of the figures. What were the savings?
$4,000, but in this specific scenario, because it's a blue collar and it would be difficult for those members to pay the initial cost, we actually created a program where we would pre-fund dollars on a debit card, give to employees and say, hey, look, you're going to have a $4,000 deductible plan. However, here's a debit card, and I'm going to put $3,650 on it.
So the first,
for you
so
to
most
use.
employees are going to be out of pocket nothing. Instead of kind of the back end HRA, this is a front end HRA. So the savings by offering that's like a Rolls Royce type plan. What
Still,
the first year
still
savings?
saved $95,000 for this employer group, and not just the savings that we created, but genuinely for the employees now having a debit card where they're going to have $0 out of pocket because they've got all these funds.
Yeah, I mean,
It does that because we know the utilization is not going to be 100%. So we're not going to have all 100 employees use the full $3,650. We know that the data suggests that. We know you're going to have 30%. And they came out ahead, about $95,000.
Yeah, and this is year 2 or year 3, and they're still far below where they were when they had that $350 deductible plan. Good question. Yeah.
We do something where we pre-fund the HSA.
HSA.
So is that a similar
It's similar. I'm a big proponent of HSA. Stands for Health Savings Accounts. These have been around since George W. Bush was president. I've been on one for over a decade. It's similar. So the key letter in HRA is reimbursement. When you put in an HSA, we offer an HSA plan. You're going to have lower premiums because typically with high deductible health plans, which are HSA compatible, you remove the copays. So you might have a $4,000 deductible plan. $0 to $4,000 would be the employee's responsibility. So you can put an HRA on that and make it walk and talk like a $2,000 deductible plan. You can also contribute to an employee's HSA. Employees, if they're able to, I highly encourage them to co-contribute because there's a triple tax benefit. Dollars go in pre-tax, they grow tax deferred, tax-free distributions. Not another vehicle like it. 401ks don't have that last tax benefit. But yeah, and what I love about HSAs is now the employee is a consumer. I would definitely ask questions when I'm at the pharmacy. Like, I'd ask my doctor, are there samples available? So I get the medication for free.
Right.
And that's a way to,
it's great that you do that you actually contribute.
It's best practices.
Yeah, I mean, I see HSA as far better than a 401k. A 401k, you ultimately are being taxed on an HSA. You never pay tax.
Never pay taxes. The only difference is you're capped on how much you can put into an HSA. It's less than you can. So I say fund the HSA as much as you can. And listen, and 401k, because you can invest the HSA dollars in like mutual funds and whatnot.
What's the maximum amount you can?
What is it this year? They just upped it last year.
Just increased.
You can put in about, as an individual, approximately $4,000 for a family.
$85.50 for family.
Yeah, and if you're over 55, you can put in, there's catch-up contributions.
Another $1,000.
Age,
Correct.
yeah, and they adjust it every year. They increased it for 2026.
Since this is an EO event, are you familiar, we have an issue, I think, with our PEO, that company principals can't participate in HSA programs?
So HSAs are governed by the IRS, and we're an S corporation, I think, maybe similar to you. If you're an S corp, or if you're an owner or have ownership in an S corporation, you can still reap the same tax benefits, but the employer should not be contributing to your HSA. The business owner should be contributing directly to the HSA. So if you're able to put away $5,000.
So it should be pre-tax dollars.
Well, no, but you're going to reap the tax benefits at the end of the year. You're going to get a complete above the line deduction. So if your earnings are $100,000, you're only going to be taxed on $95,000. So you're getting the same tax benefit, but it's not done via payroll deduction.
Okay.
Right.
But it's the exact same type. That's a good question. And we see, meeting with a group on Monday, and they're an S corp, and the owners for years been doing it the wrong way, and so, yeah, gonna just help him fix that problem. Yeah.
Question, so on the claims data that come from the insurance companies, do claims are, and I don't know if that's the employer's responsibility or the consultant's responsibility to look for some unusual things that
It's the consultants.
even drugs,
Yeah.
even prescription, like you could go from this to generic and the cost would be 90% less for this particular drug.
Yeah, I don't expect any employer, unless they're specifically in our industry, to be able to effectively navigate the system. I think it's the consultant's responsibility to walk them through, tell them what's available. It might be a little bit different based on who the insurance carrier is, and identify those areas that cost savings can be achieved.
Do most of them do that? That's standard or not?
Consultants, my answer is I hope it is, but probably not. I mean, we've had this conversation with dozens of employers, and it's like deer in headlights. It's the first time they've even heard that they can get this information. So ask questions. And if you're working with somebody and they're unable to provide you with an answer that you feel is adequate, talk to somebody else. Because as Alex said at the very
Continue to
beginning,
ask. Don't let it be complicated. It's not
complicated.
complicated.
Or scan this QR code. I mean, as Alex said at the beginning, unfortunately, most of the folks in our industry are doing the bare minimum. They're pushing the easy button, renew as is. We were able to get the 30% increase down to an 8% increase. Let's renew as is, and that it doesn't work year over year.
Do a lot of the, I think, because I had asked you about this before, that a lot of the brokers wait until it's so close to
Where the employer has absolutely no chance.
You don't have time to look to get other quotes.
Yeah, to evaluate the market.
You're,
Yeah.
you're basically stuck with them. Does that happen a lot, or just very few use that tactic?
I see it more often than not. I mean, so typically renewal claims data comes to the broker consultant side as early as, 100 days before, 3 months before. And depending on the carrier and whatnot, the employer might not get anything. And yeah, it's not uncommon for the broker to knock on the door November 20th, the plan renews January 1st. You've got Thanksgiving, you got Christmas, and really don't have time to make any sort of decisions and do open enrollment, communicate things. It happens far too often. And it's a large ticket item from a business expense standpoint.
Okay, so inflation year over year is about 2.7%, right? And then I
Sure. Yeah.
Each of the last 2 years, Blue Cross has raised over 30%. How?
Look at the stock. Look at the stock prices. Blue Cross doesn't have a stock, but look at United Healthcare, Aetna, Cigna, Humana. Look at their stock price, and look at inflation, and look at premiums, and it's a crazy graph if you've got those 3 data points. And like deductibles going up, employee share of the premium. How? Because they're able to. Because they have the market cornered. That's how.
Just because they can.
Because they can. And I don't want to get political at all, but there were some provisions in the.
Safe space is fine.
There are provisions in the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, which, by the way, has a lot of very good. It's got a lot of really good protections for the consumer, but there are also a lot of protections for the insurance carrier. Something called the medical loss ratio. So that protects, that almost guarantees an insurance carrier to make a profit year after year.
Yeah, that was deep in the fine print. I read it.
Yeah.
Got blasted in financial media for going, there's a lot of protection for the actual insurers with this. Yeah. But I still just look at it mathematically and I go, man, 30%. Again, if I did that in my business, I would be out of business.
You're a publicly traded company, and you're the shareholders, or that's who you are allegiant to.
So, like with P&C
Mm-hmm.
or property and casualty, homeowners and stuff like that, you can shop around, because Safeco might jack it up 27% or something, and you go to insert the carrier here, and it's only a 5% increase. Does the same apply with these types of platforms?
Not really, because there are so many different variables. I mean, for like an individual health insurance, yeah, you go to ehealthinsurance.com and you can put in your zip code, your date of birth, and you can see what's available. But when you're talking about group plans, especially the larger you are, I mean, they take so many different things into consideration. Claims, demographics, industry, how long you've been with carriers for. There are, you know, large claim, like you might have 3 large claimants in your population, two $100,000 claimants, one $500,000 claimant. It's the broker or consultant's responsibility to really look at diagnosis codes, prognosis codes, and then when we go to market, explain to the underwriters that, you know, that $500,000 claimant, they're not on the plan, they're not on COBRA. That should not be a liability to you. Again, when we work on behalf of the employer versus the insurance company, we market the employer and put them in the best possible light to get them the best possible program from the various carriers.
Thank you.
Yeah, great question.
Are you guys familiar with Medicare?
Yes.
Okay. So I went on Medicare a couple of years ago. It saves my small business a lot of money.
A lot, fraction, yeah.
But the back to pharmaceutical, because I still earn a decent salary,
Yep.
the IRMA that I pay on prescription coverage is unbelievable. And I don't take any medicine. And then when I go in and try to use that benefit, it costs so much. And I've been told that if I deny it and never need it, then you'll have a penalty.
Yeah, so Medicare is so as you approach 65, you're going to, especially the one or 2 years before the 1 or 2 years. Well, or you don't look like you're disabled. So I mean, there are some other qualifiers. But if you're like between 60 and 65 years old, you've probably accumulated 100 pounds of mail in your mailbox from various carriers, vendors, and it's overly confusing. But if you get we typically recommend Medicare supplements. You buy a really good supplement. It might cost $200 or $300 a month at most. And then you can go to medicare.gov, which I recommend. And you might do this, enter in your prescriptions, and then it will tell you every single Part D plan available. And if you want to be less risk, if you're more risk averse, you might want to pay $100 for a Part D plan and pay $0 copays for everything. But you can shop it based on your prescriptions. But yeah, maybe the plan that you have is there are plans that are $0, but again, you might be out of pocket.
But the IRMA, that penalty you get for making money, there's no way of getting around that. Like it's, what, $250 a month?
No, I mean, when you make millions a year, they want their money back. Yeah, no, that's
just the way it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you have the ability to go on the group plan, but that's also cost prohibitive.
No, it's so much better.
Yeah. Yeah, and an employer, when insurance carriers look at risk, they look at the demographics. They look at how many people are in their 50s, 60s, 70s that are on the health plan, and they ding you for that. An employer is not legally allowed to entice their employees to get onto Medicare. However, they are allowed to provide education, and that's where we come in. We'll educate a workforce. We'll do lunch and learns and talk about the benefits of Medicare. And many times, the person eligible for Medicare, they'll see, wow, my prescriptions will be free. My cost per year, per month are going to be 50, 75% less. And you don't know what you don't know. So education is key. I love the questions.
Yeah.
Is there, I'm sorry, I found this stuff absolutely fascinating. And this is sort of a passion issue for me in terms of the cost of healthcare,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm a bleeding heart capitalist, but I also go like, my God, how much profit should there really be allowed in this stuff when it's people's lives or health and wellness? Is there a less than 3-minute answer to the following question? Does a solution actually exist to equilibrate or normalize,
Yes.
the cost of this stuff? Because when I look at the average cost of the average mortgage in this country, and I'm paying for a silver PPO plan well in excess of that per month, I'm like, this doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. So there are plans out there. They might have different names, marketing names for them, but there are programs out there that basically don't have provider networks. They don't have Aetna, United, Blue Cross, Cigna networks, and they function like Medicare. So you can go to any doctor that you want, and they reimburse providers at Medicare or Medicare Plus levels. So that is and we have clients, we talk about it, we've implemented these plans on it. It requires heavy education, because many times on these programs, you've got, again, somebody that doesn't know the system as well as you or us, and they go to the doctor and they say, we don't take this plan, because the person at the front desk making $12, $15, $20 an hour, they don't see the Blue Cross Blue Shield logo on it or something like that. So there are programs out there, and I'm happy to provide you with some examples and options offline after this meeting. I don't want to name drop any vendors in this meeting, but yeah, there are certainly solutions out there that would probably be a fraction of the $1,800 or $1,900 that you pay.
When does your, movie come out?
It's in its final cut. Was today the 23rd? It could be finished this month. If you're interested, I was talking to somebody else in the audience. We're going to be doing like an online watch event, and then we'll also be, just depends on the timing with, again, Christmas and Thanksgiving and everything, probably rent out a few movie theaters across the Metroplex, assuming we can get enough of an audience. And it's not a 2-hour movie on prescription drugs. That's too much. It's 45 minutes. So we do like a lunch and learn event, and we'll like have a panel beforehand or afterwards, and but it's really good. I've seen it. It's really good, and it applies to everybody. Everybody goes to the pharmacy, and everybody can feel that pain, whether you're a consumer or an employer, because with employers you're paying for it. Yeah, we can exchange contact, and I can provide you with information on it afterwards.
That's great.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your time. And we'll stick around to ask offline any sort of answer questions. Thank you again.